Welcome to Learn to Live Stress-Free. This is Christine Wright with Dr. Robert Wright Jr. of www.stressfreenow.info.
Hi, this is Dr. Bob, the Stress and Pain Relief Doctor. I'm here today in Harlem, New York, with the lovely Vienna Carroll. And we're going to talk about history, American history, not just Black history, but American history. So, Vienna, welcome, and I want to welcome you to Stress Me Now podcast, and thank you for being our featured guest today. And we are in front of the Harriet Tubman statue here in Harlem, which is very appropriate for the topic today. So introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay, my name is Vienna Carroll, and I am a singer and a playwright and a historian, and I share African American history through my art. And my focus is on our agency in freeing ourselves from slavery.
Great. So now, Vienna, I saw you present at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and that was about 6 weeks ago or months ago. And so I got so excited to reveal information about Black sailors, how this little-known aspect of American history. And what struck me was Vienna kept saying, this is American history. This is not Black history. And that is something that struck me. So I said, I got to talk to her because she's got something, because it's true. It's American history. It's not Black history. It's like, it's not a Black-owned business, because we don't say it's a white-owned business. It's a business, right? And so take it away. Tell the audience, the viewers and listeners about these Black sailors that did remarkable things in terms of the emancipation process that's little known. And audience, I just want to say, we are in the heart of Harlem, so this is really cool that we got natural sound effects, including pigeons. Look, we got pigeons and sparrows. Okay, so go.
Okay, so how I came to this is actually I was writing a play about Nat Turner from the perspective of his daughter. The Nat Turner Rebellion, he was a Reverend Turner. And I wanted to include a Black sailor in them because I had just come to know them from David Walker's Appeal, which is a very radical book written by a tailor, a radical abolitionist named David Walker in 1829. He was in Massachusetts, and he advocated the violent overthrow of slavery. And it was said that his book, his pamphlet called David Walker's Appeal, was up and down the East Coast in 6 months because it was distributed by sailors. He would sew the pages inside their uniforms.
Oh my goodness.
And they would distribute the book up and down the East Coast in 6 months. Huge distribution.
So Vienna, I just want to interrupt you. Do you realize that almost nobody knows about this? Well, I'm saying somebody. I'm hoping that the descendants of these people, and I'm actually hoping from this that maybe we can find some descendants and interview them, who, if they have the family history where it was passed down that they were saved by sailors and didn't come through the Underground Railroad. So that would be fascinating to get that oral history and whatever documents they may have.
Yep, I think that would be wonderful. So I wanted to know, what does the music of the sailors sound like?
Okay.
And someone directed me to a sea music festival And I spent the weekend with my mouth open because the gatekeepers of that music are white people. And they get together every year and they sing very lustily, call and response. And it was tunes I didn't know, but the form of the music I did know.
So wait, I'll stop you. Explain what you had when you said the gatekeepers of that music, because it's very important. Because the more you look into how the music business or entertainment business is structured in the United States in particular, so that is part of our dilemma. I know when I was listening to the radio one time, and they had I think it was the guy from D Train, and I forget who the lead singer was because they made that song "Keep on Stepping Till You Reach Higher Ground." Don't let nobody turn you around. And he said on the radio was that the music company, and I don't remember which music company, told them if you ever make another song like that, you're free. And so I've actually heard that from different rappers and hip hop. And I said, there's no other people that denigrate their women to make money singing songs because there's no other group that does that. So I said, why? They said, well, we have to do what they tell us. So this is like a little known thing that some of the people that I talked to, I was startled because they said, well, it's not that we want to do it. That's how our money's made. But I said, but no other group of people, no other culture denigrates their woman, have the level of misogyny in the lyrics and the music because the rapping and hip hop is beautiful, but the lyrics could be, pop, 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 get my MBA, I'm going to kid or whatever.
So they have some of that.
Yes, I understand. So all I'm saying is that I heard the D Train guy on the radio talking about it, and it's saying that he actually was told, don't you ever make another song like that or you'll be out of the business. Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, so
let's move a little further.
So
Okay.
what I mean by gatekeepers is that these are the people who are preserving the history through the songs. So they get together and they sing these songs every year at these various sea music festivals.
But are these songs copyrighted at all or trademarked?
They're like spirituals. They're public domain. So.
Okay, so they're public domain. So I wanted to get to that because that's a part of the music business. Is can you use certain material?
Yeah.
Okay, so good. Thank you.
And the form is African. It's the African call and response form. So. And what really piqued my interest was this tune called "Shallow Ground," and there's a verse in it. Well, my master's gonna sell me, and then the response is, "Oh, shallow ground." Says he'll sell me to a Yankee. Oh, shallow ground. Says he'll sell me for $1. Oh, shallow ground. A big fat Spanish dollar. Oh, shallow ground. And there I am with all white people and me. And they're all singing that song lustily. And I'm like, well, what the hell?
So explain to me why they just enjoy the music, or
it's a sea shanty, and they get together and they sing sea shanties all weekend, and they go through the history of sea shanties, and sometimes the history they're coming to that most of these sea shanties originated with black watermen and black sailors, and and certainly that's upheld by the form of the song. So those lyrics in particular really fascinated me. So I said, let me do some more research. So I found they recommended this book. This book called Blackjacks.
Let's hold it up. Blackjack.
By, and I never remember his name, Jeffrey Bolster. It's a wonderful book. And one thing that makes it really wonderful is he completely talks about the agency of Black people in their own freedom story at that time. And the reason that that was able to happen was because, well, free labor is great labor. So they had to move goods, and they had to move the goods on the water prior to 1865, etc. So they moved that, and they used the black man. Let me see. Now,
Yes, I had asked Vienna to read a couple of key chapters, paragraphs from the book, and at the end of this broadcast, I'm going to have her give you the title and the author information. So if you want to, you can go online and purchase this book for yourself. I think it's very important with all the scurrilous information that's on the internet that we document facts and show truth. And that's the only way you can have justice, not just ice.
Okay, now this book is not the this is that book. This book is really, really wonderful. This is called Sailing to Freedom, Maritime Dimensions, the Underground Railroad. And it's a series of essays, and it's edited by Timothy Walker. So he says...
Tell them the page number.
Okay. I picked it out.
Right, so Vienna is looking, while she's looking for the passage, let me just give you the detailed information on this book. It's by W. Jeffrey Bolster, Bolster, called Blackjacks. It's African-American seamen in the age of sail. And so, and it's by Harvard Press, so it should be easy to get. And so what I've said to Vienna is that this is very little known information, especially within the context of the Underground Railroad. And so that's why we're here today to honor Harry Tubman and the Black sailors.
So it says, enslaved laborers worked as shipyard artisans, quayside stevedores and longshoremen, river boatmen and ferrymen, coastwise cargo vessel crewmen, and estuary or near coastal fishermen, among many other occupations connected to the water. Now, what they don't go into in this book, right there, but they do in other parts of the book, and also in this book, is that Black men were really, really, really very important in the whaling industry as well. Because whaling, it was very hard to keep people, to keep employees as was work was long and dirty, away from your family and land for a long time. But the Black men found relative freedom there because they couldn't be persecuted, couldn't have their family taken away from them if they were already on the boat. And if they had skill, then they were respected for whatever skill that they had. So I heard that lyric and I began to do more research with Mr. Bolster's book here, and then this one much more recently. And actually, I wrote a play in which I incorporated the history of the Black sailors that I had, and I had them really important in the Nat Turner Rebellion.
Okay, so explain that. Explain that.
Because they were agents, because they moved around, they did in fact bring back stories of how they were treated when they weren't in their particular brutal enslaved situation. These men were able not only to go from the backwater plantations to the coastal cities, but they also went to the Caribbean back and forth. They went to Europe, in what they call checkerboard crews, black and white together, and a mixture of people. They went to Africa. They went to New Zealand. They went to Japan. There was a black man, Fierce Concert, who was on the ship that when Japan so-called opened in 1848. So black men were all over. They wrote the first 6 autobiographies of black people before 1800, and they were multilingual. That they could read. They intermarried, and they helped develop. This book is really great talking about that. They helped develop the freedom ethos among the land-based black population by bringing back stories of freedom and sharing them and opening up people's mind to possibilities of freedom and agency.
So Vienna,
and helping
yes,
also to free people on their boats.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, right. So Vienna, this is really great. As we start to wind down, an audience, this is actually the second broadcast in a series of talks about black sailors. But I want to ask you specifically about the state of South Carolina. That's where my mother was born.
Oh, yeah.
And I was down in the Charleston area last summer, and I was trying to find Sullivan Island because that Sullivan Island played a key role. But we ended up in St. John's Island because we couldn't find parking. Even when you drove into a paid parking lot in Charleston, we weren't sure if you were going to get towed away because I was like, so we ended up on St. John's Island. Let's talk about the insidious role of the change in the law in the state of South Carolina. And I think the reason I want to talk about that specific state is that I think most people know about the horrible tragedy that happened there at the AME church when black people were praying and a white guy came in and he murdered them in hopes of starting a race war. And so this wasn't that long ago. I don't remember what year this was, but last year, while visiting my brother in South Carolina, I passed that church twice. So South Carolina, it played a key role in the Confederacy. And here's what I want to say. Also, I was in Florence, South Carolina last summer, and I had a I don't know what term when people of color treat other people of color horribly. I was in the Red Lobster restaurant in Florence, South Carolina, and the Black and Spanish wait staff would not wait on me. And so I want to talk about South Carolina. I reserve a special place for because, and that's not the only state where that has happened. But talk about how South Carolina changed the law so that when black sailors came into the port, they were immediately locked up and put into jail for just being black.
Well, the thing is that they were really, the information that they were sharing, and they were really successful in that, in helping to shape the mind of the African people who were living there and make them more aware of possibilities. And so what happened was, they don't make a law unless there's something to make a law against, right? So the sailors came. Denmark Vesey was a previous sailor, and then when he retired from the water, he became a minister. And so he had a good following, and he decided he was going to foment for the overthrow of slavery, at least there in Charleston, which was a big port town. And so he was almost...
It still is a big port town.
Right. He was almost successful, being betrayed at the very last moment. And as a result of that, they instituted these Negro Seamen's Acts in South Carolina because they said the sailors that I guess were part of his rebellion were fomenting coming outsiders. What do they call? What do they say? Bringing in, making people have ideas. Yeah.
Oh, like want to be free, escape the freedom.
Yeah.
Like that idea.
Yeah.
Just like everybody else.
Right. And so what happened is they'd have these crews coming from the north and they'd come into Charleston. And what they did with the black men is they took them off the boat and they put them in jail for the entire time that the boat was in port. So it had to be unloaded, it had to be fixed, and it had to be reloaded to keep going on. And the black men were put in jail for that entire time. They had to pay their own room and food while they were in jail. And when the boat left, then they could get back on and keep going. So South Carolina did that in direct response to the Denmark-Vesey Rebellion. And then as time went on, other states adopted these quarantine acts or Negro Seamen's Acts because these guys were really, really great. I mean, they went away and they came back and they told the story of how they were treated otherwise. They could read, they could write, they were
and that's considered dangerous in the economic system because they were making money off of us, and they're still making money off of us. And so many people are discouraged from going to school, becoming literate, and moving on and living the American dream because the system, the way it's currently organized, is stacked against us. It's still, even though this is over 150 years after the Civil War, and we'll get to that term on another segment. But Vienna, I want to ask you, do you have any upcoming events, or if not, how can viewers and listeners contact you? Should they be interested in have you as a speaker or learning more about this subject?
Well, thank you very much. And I actually prepared a paper because my name is really unique, Vienna Carroll. And so you can find me very easily on the web because I don't try to hide it. There, it's in this book. And on Instagram, I'm Vienna Carroll. I have a website, Vienna Carroll. I have another website, Vienna Carroll Music. These are all my things. Maybe you could just make a thing of it at some point.
Okay.
On Facebook, I'm Vienna Carroll. I'm just Vienna Carroll. And the websites also are Project Link. There's a website about that play that I wrote about the Black Sailor called Shallow Ground, and another play that I wrote called Singing with a Sword in My Hand about a family escaping slavery, where we are the center of our own stories. Those kind of stories I tell, where we are the center of the story, and we freed ourselves from slavery.
Wait, Vienna, say that part again.
We freed ourselves from slavery, and we had white people who helped us. There's a story in this maritime book, in this one. There are several people who wrote essays about this guy named Peter Robinson. He was in North Carolina, and he had 2 Quaker helpers. But you understand, I'm using that word very deliberately. They were helpers. And he and these 2 Quaker guys, they helped a lot of people get to freedom. But the guys couldn't have done it without him. And basically, and then there's another passage in this book, I think, where it said that, when people were escaping, they relied on other people who were in bondage. Right. And that most of their help came from other people who were in bondage. there's this other book because more and more slave narratives are coming out,
Right.
and there's this other book, and it talks about a young man who was separated from his mother, and he was determined to get back with his mother. And so he ran away 5 times before he was successful. And he was betrayed by black people 2 times, but he was helped by black people all 5 times. All 5 times he was helped through them putting him up in the night, giving him food, giving him warnings, listening to his stories about where, and being able to tell him which way to go. There were also these maroon societies.
What state was he in? Do you know?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't remember. But they were able to guide him and tell him, the next safe space that he could go to,
Okay.
or what white person he could go to who would be able to help him
Okay.
on his journey. And that's was so, when I'm like, wow, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Because I come from a small town in Pennsylvania, right above the Mason-Dixon line. And I finally went to the York Historical Society, and they have all these books about Underground Railroad in there, and they talk about that specifically. There's a lot of study that specifically Black people leading the other refugees and fugitives to white people, Quakers, who were not monolithic in their view either, and who would help them along their way to the next.
So basically what you're saying, it wasn't just Harriet Tubman. She's just a well-known example. There are other fierce people who risk their lives to help and save others. And so on that note, I want to get to wind down. I want to say to all our friends out there, because I've been traveling and I've been struck at by how many good people there are out here. It's just a small actual segment that's vocal, that's very nasty and very hateful.
Yes.
But when you travel around the world, what you see is that regardless of race, religion, color, ethnicity, what kind of food people eat, people tend to be welcoming and wonderful. And so it's just that there's this system where, especially with the economics, where they were using people to make money, and so we'll get into that in our next broadcast to talk about chattel slavery. How I'm going to ask Vienna how that was different than slavery in the past. Vienna, what final thought or key idea would you like our audience to take away from today's show?
We freed ourselves. We helped each other. There's just a terrible, terrible thing we say about each other, that we're crabs in a barrel and we don't help each other, we don't look out for each other. And that is completely untrue. That is part of the white supremacist narrative to help keep us down and keep us in mental anguish all the time. But we did it ourselves, and we did it together, and we continue to work together and help each other, as Bob says. And we have lots of people who are also freedom-loving, who help us and stay on our side as well.
Well, Vienna, I cannot believe, or I should say, this is astounding that you talked about this crab in a barrel issue. So I want to pick up that thread during the next broadcast, because this issue of intragroup strife, and that's actually a real thing. But we have to look at the bigger picture, right? And so this is Dr. Bob signing off today from from Harlem, New York, at the Harriet Tubman statue. We give honor to Harriet Tubman and all the dancers like her who risk their lives to save others. And I just returned from Harlem, Amsterdam, and that's Harlem spelled with 2 A's. And so at some point, I hope we get to mix some video footage of this broadcast with shots from Harlem, which Harlem, New York is named after. So this is Dr. Bob from stressfreenow.info from Stress Free Now podcast. Until next time, wishing you well and asking you to remember to honor the old airline metaphor, which says to put your own oxygen mask on before assisting others. So this is Dr. Bob from Stress Free Now. Until next time, be safe and be well.